Fact checks, research, making doubly sure that everything you've said is factual. Our guest this week on the Thumbstopper podcast is Cool Story Bru, a man who's taken the internet by storm with his daily drops of shocking and sometimes funny news. He's got a unique story coming from way outside of the world of content creation in video form. We catch up with Cool Story Bru this week to find out what his intentions were before he started making video content, how the bug bit him, and why he stopped being a teacher. Welcome to Thumbstopper Podcast. My name is Omar Moto. Enjoy the episode. People don't know a lot about who you are, and a lot of people would assume Cool Story Bru is the beginning, right?
True.
And Cool Story Bru is not the beginning. You started with rugby memes.
You're right.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, so just to also clarify, like that type of content creation is obviously very different to what I'm doing now. So how I started was in 2018, so just before the previous World Cup. Started creating my own memes and stuff. But that was like very basic. That was like a free app on my phone. I didn't even know how to use Photoshop back then.
Mematic or something like that?
Mematic, meme generator. That was the one I used, So that's how it started, And then as time went on, started learning new skills, and Cool Story Bru is still fairly new. I only started beginning of this year. So
really?
Yeah.
It's had a massive impact just on something that has been alive for 11 months now?
I suppose it's fairly unique. Not a lot of people are doing it, which helps. If you have a new concept, then it's easier to grow. And
I also think like it is for the South African space, because the kind of storytelling content using kind of summarizing, I suppose, an event, which is the stream of content that you're in, that is not a normal thing for the South African space.
True.
How did you land there?
Well, so I think things that have worked very well in South Africa is obviously humor. There's lots of great content creators who are very funny, and so that's something I think that's been around for quite a while. But I suppose sort of there's a lot of things that have happened in South Africa, like history and places that people don't know about, because we obviously don't learn this in school. Right? But you can literally search anything online and there's a South African version of it, which is so cool. Like, one of the number one questions I get asked is, how do I find these stories? But it's like, you can literally search any title, like with South Africa, and there will be a South African version. So I love that. So I can't remember. How did I get to this? So obviously when I was doing rugby comedy and stuff before, like I had a huge passion for that as well. But I think when you're a creative person, you also want to start dabbling in other things as well. So the same sort of way I approached my rugby content was there were quite a lot of funny rugby pages out there, but there wasn't a South African version.
Got you.
So I thought, let me do
because you focus specifically on the Springboks.
Yes, when I was doing that, I was focusing specifically on the Springboks. So I did like a South African version of that. So like with Cool Story Bru, it's similar. So there's a lot of very cool. How I got into it was through TikTok first. So obviously we've all seen them, like interesting conspiracies and stuff on TikTok.
But there's videos with the AI voice.
Yes, like one of my biggest inspirations actually was a channel called The Rabbit Hole on TikTok. I don't know if you're aware of them, but I realized there wasn't a South African version of that. So I started thinking, are there South African stories? Like, is there a South African hidden treasure? Is there a South African, like, all South African stories, myths,
a cave
history?
that goes to nowhere?
Exactly, So, and then I did a South African version of it, and thankfully it worked well. And over time, it sort of transformed into also news and current events and above.
Got you. And the inclusion of like news and current events, was that a specific thing that happened that kind of turned you on to, I want to include this. I want to include this into what I do?
That was actually unintentional. It's quite a funny story. So when I started it, I was focusing more on places and like things that have already happened, previous stories and whatnot. But then I started noticing in the comments, and as a content creator, it's very important to pay attention to what your audience is saying. And often actually your audience can guide you as to what you should be doing, which is amazing. So people started, even though I wasn't really doing news in the beginning, I started seeing people say like, you must source of news and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, people actually see me as somewhat news. Let me actually do a bit of news as well. But whenever I try and do news, like I'm not the most. There's a lot of content creators much more intelligent than me and much more.
Don't put yourself down like that.
No, but seriously, like a lot of people understand like the South African politics and so well. I'm not like that. I prefer the entertaining side of it.
If it can make you chuckle, that's what you're into.
Like either something crazy, so I prefer that side of it. So I don't like to get into too much of the politics and unpacking all of that. I like to focus on the like WTF moments and
like when 50 million bucks just goes missing. Sitting there.
Oh, well, South Africa's a movie every single day. Like,
South Africa is a meme
and a movie. We honestly, like, we have our problems, but we're so lucky the country we live in because it's so entertaining. Every day there's something crazy, funny going on.
Yeah,
we're blessed in that.
I think I saw. I think it was either a meme or some kind of tweet, or it was in a TikTok comment somewhere, and it was like after this whole situation with this American content creator that said something about Tyler, and then the entire country basically just, piled on.
Yes.
And the comment was, if the world was a classroom, South Africa would be the one sitting in the back, in the corner, just causing trouble all day.
Yes.
And I think those unique kind of stories, that's where you come in.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because so we need somebody that's going to be kind of like a chronicler or I don't know what the right word is, like an archivist or.
I think just what I try to do is bring these things to light. Like so many of the video topics I've done, I had no idea about myself. Like I've been doing a few videos on different prisons in South Africa. And there's so many these prisons I've come across. Like I've had no idea about them. So I think that's just what I'm trying to do. Just speak about the cool things in our country, and on the topic of sort of South Africa. Ganging together when other people speak about us. I feel like we have almost like a brother-sister relationship with our country.
Siblings.
So we can insult South Africa, but other people can't. Like you can't insult our country. Only we allowed to do that. So
even interprovincial, like Limpopo, witchcraft.
Yes.
But don't say something about Limpopo from outside.
Exactly. Yeah. Then I've gotten some heat for that before. Like I did some video on a haunted mountain in Limpopo. And got a lot of people saying like, you don't know about this mountain. It's much worse than you realize. So no, it's cool. Like also what I've realized, which is very cool, is like people almost unite in the comment section in a way. And I think that's how the online space has evolved over the years. It's really become almost like an online forum in the comment section. So in a lot of my videos, I've found that like very fun to look at, just people or either complaining about the same thing or like celebrating the same thing. Yeah. So that's also...
Well, it's been you've been doing it since, I'm not going to say been doing it since Jan, but Cool Story Bru has been running since the beginning of the year.
Yes, that's correct.
But before that, just to go back just a little bit, 2018, you're doing the Bok Rugby memes. At some point, a really cool publication pays attention to what you're doing. Ball carrier, they get involved, right? And just for our viewers and our listeners, it's rugby, right? We just came out to the World Cup now. Number one, our boys did us so well. So proud, How did you go from, I'm making memes to I'm going to work for this company now. Yeah. And I'm actually going to be a professional and I'm going to create content for them, because one is fun. And the other one is, I need to clock in and do this. Yeah. But also there's a disconnect because now you're still doing fun stuff and getting paid for it.
Yes.
What was that transition like for you from, it's fun, but now I'm making a living here?
Yeah. So I'm very blessed to have it as my full-time job now, the content creation. So how I got into it was connections are obviously very important and stuff. So I got into touch with the right kind of people, and they first gave me a chance part-time. Yeah. And at the time, it was very crazy because I was working a full-time job and working for them part-time. Yes. But for a couple of months, I just tried to put my head down and work really hard. And eventually, I sort of proved myself, and they gave me a full-time opportunity. And yeah, definitely when it goes full-time, it's very easy to sort of take it for granted. Yeah. Because when you're doing it all the time, no matter what job you have, if you're doing it all the time, the novelty kind of wears off. Oh, yeah. So especially when you're doing something creative, it can be challenging to be creative all day. Yeah. Because when you have like a certain day job and then you sort of do content creation for fun on the side, it's often easier to be creative because you sort of store up this creativity as the day goes on. And then when you work on your project, it's very
the energy is not there.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're doing content creation all day, you can sort of run out of that creative tank. But for me, no, it's been really cool, a really cool opportunity, but has also been challenging at times to stay creative and whatnot. And that's actually part of what inspired me to start a new type of content creation.
To separate away from...
Yes, so obviously like I could have continued doing only rugby content, my own brand, and working for Ball Carrier. But the thing is, what I've realized is when you're a creative person, you have like a certain creative tank.
Yeah.
And sort of, if I was doing rugby content all day, my creative tank in that sort of realm was empty, and I didn't feel creative in rugby anymore. So and I actually went through a time where I was feeling like sad and like lost because I didn't have that creative outlet. So that's also what contributed to me having the idea of starting a new brand and something creative in a new niche.
Was it a tough split? I mean, you're still working creatively, as in this is your day job. I'm a creative there, but now over here I also have to be creative, but it's for me.
Yeah.
Is it a weird split that you have to be creative here and here, but it's two separate entities?
I feel like for me it feels like they're two separate tanks, creative tanks.
Got you.
If I'm doing rugby content all day, I actually want to then do a different type of content at the end of the day. So for me, it's not too challenging. I'm able to keep up with both. And how I see content creation is like the same way a musician has to create music, the same way an artist has to paint or draw. It sounds weird, but content creation, I see it also as like an art form in a way. It's creativity. Just
a lot of detail that goes into it.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're passionate about something, it's easy to do something. And that's always what I tell people that want to get into content creation. Make sure it's something in a niche you enjoy. And the transition from sort of the rugby content to the more general content did have its challenges because it's a more difficult type of content creation. So the rugby stuff was easy in the sense because it's very banter centered. So I could say like stupid stuff. And get away with it. But when you're focusing on information-based stuff, you have to make sure everything you're saying in the video is correct. And it's packing a lot of information into short-form videos, 30-second to a minute videos. So it is challenging in that way because you have to make sure you're correct and accurate. You're factual. But it's been a nice new challenge, trying something new and different, and it's made me a better content creator.
Does this line up with where you kind of saw yourself? You know, and as a teen, as a kid, mommy, I'm gonna be this. Does this line up?
Not at all. So
what was the dream for young Austin?
I actually studied to be a teacher.
Oh, really?
So and I qualified as a teacher. And I worked as a teacher for 1.5 years.
Okay.
And now I've been doing content creation full time for just over a year. So when I was young, younger, when I was like primary school, I was very creative. I used to sit writing comics and making home movies for hours and hours. Like that's where I think the content creation started for me. I used to love that. But then in high school, I sort of lost track of that passion a bit because I got very involved in sports and school stuff. And I wasn't involved in anything creatively in school, which I regret. Like I wish that in school I got involved a little bit in like theater and stuff, productions in school. But so I completely lost that passion and I was very focused on sort of going education route. I wanted to be a school principal or like a rugby coach. That's what I wanted to do. But then in university, I sort of rediscovered that passion of content creation. And so the path I'm on now compared to like sort of high school is very different. But that's how life works. Like
100%.
Throws you curveballs, and that's why it's very difficult to know fully what you want to do when you're in matric. So I always say to people, like, be very open to the opportunities out there. Don't narrow yourself into one thing, and don't overly stress either what you study. Like if we're so lucky in the world we live in, you can branch out into almost anything. You can get an online course in almost anything. I have no qualifications in content creation. I didn't take any courses in video editing or anything, but as I said earlier, I'm not the most intelligent guy around. If I can learn it, anyone can learn it.
I mean, it's out there. There's a video somewhere to teach you how to do these things.
How to do anything.
And I openly say, listen, the lights that you see here today and the way they're set up, that was YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The 3-point rule. Yeah. So.
That was YouTube. And I think, I mean, contrary to like maybe 10 years ago, where you come out of high school, you've got your career, or rather not even you have your career, you've got the thing that you're going to study, and that's going to lead to a career. You're going to stay there until retirement. I don't think that kind of applies anymore when you step out of your degree or whatever it might be that you studied. And it's a cool space, but it's also a scary space, isn't it?
Absolutely. But we're also so privileged to have social media because it allows people the opportunity to almost be anything they want in a way. Like, if I was trying to do this in the 80s, I mean, what would my options be? I would have to try get on radio or television, which is very difficult. Yeah. But nowadays, anyone can have a platform. Anyone can have their own kind of show.
It's democratized,
Yeah, so and the way the algorithms work now compared to like 5 years ago, it's much easier to get viral and to get in front of people. So we're so privileged in the time we're living in, where social media is still like emerging, so anyone can kind of get up there.
Yeah.
And it's changing as well. Like so many people have said to me, like, I'm not even a qualified journalist or anything, but a lot of people have said to me they're using me as a news source rather than like traditional means, which isn't always the smartest thing. Like, I always encourage people, do your own research. Like,
I mean, can you just imagine, like, in a newspaper, quote unquote, and then Cool Story Bru?
Well, I'm sure they're competitions in a way, so I don't think they would be too keen on that. But yeah, so also like social media is changing so much. Like, how people get news nowadays is often like sharing videos with one another and looking in comment sections. I think mainstream media is still very important. But also younger generations, they actually prefer, they've done studies, they prefer getting their news from social media. So we're in a very exciting time where things are changing and there's so many opportunities.
I mean, TikTok is now competing with, I think, I stand to be correct, but I think it's competing with Google as a search engine because the younger people they're not going onto a website to go and search. They're literally just going into TikTok. Like, cool places, South Africa.
It's incredible. That's an incredible thing. And I still have quite a few friends who don't have TikTok and they don't want it because a lot of people still have that stereotype that TikTok is like just for dancing.
You're going to do the renegade all day.
Yeah, like just TikTok dances and like all that type of stuff. But I actually tell people, like, TikTok's becoming the new YouTube. Like, it's information. It's an information-based app. And as you say, it's become a search engine. You can search anything on it. If you Google stuff, TikTok comes up, a TikTok video. So TikTok's an amazing app. TikTok's become huge in South Africa, which is great. So Instagram, obviously, Facebook's huge. So luckily we don't have any other platforms banned here in South Africa.
Of course.
Some country like India, TikTok's banned, and talk of it in the US.
I mean, I think that those are political situations that, I don't know, we still have that media freedom in SA, where you can pretty much say whatever you want, but obviously there's repercussions if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person. But I think
South Africa is actually ranked very high
in
freedom of media. So it's in the top sort of tier in the world.
You see,
South Africa is ranked high.
Number one news source.
Thanks, guys. In SA, not right.
SA. No, because I wanted to get to kind of the like when you're posting, when you've done your research, when you've done your fact checks and all of that stuff. When you hit post, is there ever a moment where you have some voice in your head going, "Oh, I needed to double check that"?
Yes, often. Like, I'm the first to admit, like, I can't get everything 100% on the nose every single time. Like, but always, like, just to clarify, like, I always make sure the central message of the video is accurate. If I get anything important wrong, I take it down. But thankfully that hasn't happened where I've gotten something severely wrong. But I mean, that's actually the beauty of social media and why it's becoming a more reliable source, because you can check the comment section. And the number one source I use for news is actually Twitter/X, because Twitter is essentially a forum.
That's a minefield.
Yeah, but it is a bit of a minefield. But I actually think TikTok comment sections are the biggest minefield. People are unhinged on TikTok because it's anonymous accounts, most of them. People are crazy on TikTok. Next level. And the Facebook. People on Facebook can be a bit.
But Facebook is where you go for fake news.
True.
Facebook is where you go for forwarded many times.
Yeah. But on the point I was making, like, Twitter's great because, say, like a news outlet posts something, like CNN, News 24, whatever, you can read the comments and people will point out something if something is wrong. So it's the same with my platform. Like, comments are open. I fully encourage people to disagree with the video, disagree with anything, but I always remain neutral in the videos as well, which I feel like that's important. I make it a point of intention. Yes, I try to do that intentionally because there's a lot of South African creators who want to be opinionated, and I think there is space for that, and that's great. But I prefer to be neutral because I want to be unbiased. I
also feel like if you are going to be opinionated, you also need to be informed.
Yes,
because you can't just spew something out and not have any factual basis for what you're saying. So I suppose, like, staying objective, being not necessarily in the middle, but you have your point that you want to make, but you've researched everything that you needed to to say. I want to go. I'm thinking about this as like sitting across from you. There's Austin, there's Cool Story Bru, but there's also, it's two different worlds because you're very involved in rugby. You're very involved with yourself personally in creating content. And we mentioned, the World Cup just a little bit ago. How far did you get into supporting the Boks this year? Were you as deep?
Yes, very much so.
as I think like 80% of the country was.
Absolutely. I love the Springboks. I was 100% behind them.
Yeah.
And what was cool was I was able to cover a little bit of the Springboks on Cool Story Bru as well, which was great. So that was an awesome opportunity. When I work for ball carrier, I have to be neutral, but the Springboks won, they won the World Cup. So there wasn't any anti-Springbok stuff I needed to do.
Weren't you tense?
Oh yeah, of course. I aged by like 10 years, I think. But no, it was great. So that created a lot of good dialogue in the country.
Yeah.
It's nice that South Africans can be proud of something, and we have lots to be proud of, but that was something very specific we could be very proud of. So no, I was fully investing into that. Watched every game. That was awesome. You sound like a rugby man as well.
Recently. Also recently converted.
A lot of people are recently converted, eh?
I think the last proper Springboks match I actually watched was 2019.
Besides this World Cup, obviously. Wow. No, a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's the same for, but it's the same for like me with soccer. I only watch when it's World Cup.
Yeah.
But it's better when your home nation is performing well in that tournament. So
we have it. It's Bafana. It's going to take a while.
One day we
will get there.
But us winning the World Cup has definitely boosted the interest in rugby.
100%. I think the kind of the reason that I started really getting focused on rugby this year was my best friend is a rugby player. He's been playing since he was a kid.
Oh, awesome.
And we've never had that sports connection. I've never been a sporty guy.
Yeah.
You see all the nerd stuff we get up to. But it was kind of like an effort to kind of get closer to him. He's always been interested in the music and the things that I enjoy. But this year it was, I'm going to learn the rules. I'm going to learn who these players are. And I think that so many other South Africans also went on that same path.
Yeah.
This year. Where do you, it's kind of snarky, but do you think Rassie can do it again?
Well, the bigger question is he going to be at the next World Cup? I hope so. But his contract, don't quote me on this, but I think it ends in 2 years.
Okay.
But hopefully they'll give him an extension. But historically, if you look at the Springboks, they don't often give extensions to guys in charge. But I hope they do. But if he does stay 100%, he can do it again.
Yeah.
But
he's tricky.
Yeah.
That's the thing. His contract could end, and then they make up another role for him.
Yeah, I hope he stays.
Wait, just so we're clear, he's talking not as a ball carrier employer.
Yes.
Employee, sorry.
Now I'm completely biased.
Yeah.
So proudly so. But yeah, Rassi could be like, well, he's been water boy already. We need like a ball boy.
Yeah, he's been the ball boy. He's been an electrician with the light.
Yeah. He could be the bus driver.
Could be the bus driver.
He's at all the games.
Yeah. Should be a medic next.
Yeah.
Get a certificate.
He could be like the groundskeeper on the field. You know?
There you go.
Then he has an excuse to be there.
To actually be on the field.
I like that idea.
What's next for Austin?
Yeah, so I mean with Cool Story Bru, it's been a surprise at how people have received it. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for my audience and the support I've been given. So to be honest, when I started Cool Story Bru in the beginning of this year, like when I posted the first couple of videos, it was actually more like a test just to see like, okay, let's try this. Let's see if the videos will go viral.
Bit of A/B testing.
Yeah, and it's thankfully it did. So I mean, like, this has all been unexpected how this year has gone, and I'm very grateful for it. So for me, for Cool Story Bru, it's purely a passion project. It's I want to keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah. Keep finding as many South African stories as possible. I hope I don't run out one day.
There's no way.
Yeah. So
there's no way.
With current events, there'll always be stuff, and like, there's always a capacity to retell the stories as well. But like, I'm going to keep searching for stories. I'd eventually like to maybe get into the space of possibly interviewing people as well, hearing directly from people as well. So that would be very cool. So I mean, for now, I just am really enjoying it. Yeah, wanting to.
Do you want to test it out?
Test what out?
Test out interviewing people.
Should I interview?
Yeah, let's do it.
You were going to be my first guest.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So so I'm just enjoying as much as I can. And,
no, I meant let's do it now.
Okay,
on camera. Let's do it.
Have you been into any interesting places, or are you like a former member of anything cool?
Oh my goodness. Now you're stumping me.
Have you had any?
That was a bad idea. I was not ready to switch over to being
Yeah, so it's always about the crazy stories. I mean,
what stands out for you? I know it's tough because you do it every day, and you're probably overloaded with crazy stories. But like, is there one specific story that you got all the info, and it was just almost impossible for you to relay the story because of how many roots and branches there were?
Actually, probably yes. So the closest Cool Story Bru to my heart is the story that's actually very intertwined with my family. Yeah. So it's a story of the submarine shark, which is this giant shark. So my grandfather and uncle were very involved in that. Yeah. So they were actually the eyewitnesses of seeing this giant shark.
What?
And yeah, it's a crazy story. So my grandfather actually hooked the shark, this giant submarine shark, on 2 or 3 occasions.
Not once, not twice,
3 times. But that's when shark hunting was seen as like very acceptable. And stuff. And my grandfather actually converted from a great white shark hunter to a protector. Yeah. And he was the driving force behind South Africa becoming the first country in the world to protect great white sharks.
That's wild.
Yeah, so I come from a very patriotic family in that sense, a love for South Africa's wildlife and stuff. So that's always a story that's almost difficult to bring across. Like even trying to explain it now, like
because it's emotionally tied to it.
It's also just because there's so much to the story and it's been passed on in my family for so long.
Gotcha.
And, there's so many facts about it and information about. We should do that for the first sort of podcast thing.
Yeah.
You can come on, but I'll just explain the story.
The entire podcast is me just going,
So that's very cool. So that's always something that's very dear to my heart. That whole.
So it's a familial.
It's a familiar thing.
Yeah.
And I heard it from the man himself. You know, like mostly I'm going off other people's accounts, but this is like in my family, so that's cool.
That's crazy. I mean,
but apart from that, my favorite stories are always the fake something. The fake doctor, the fake lawyer. My favorite one is the fake pilot from South Africa who flew for 20 years.
What?
There was a fake.
There's a South African Catch Me If You Can.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, so he flew for 20 years with a fake license.
No.
He was a qualified pilot, but he wasn't qualified to do long haul flights, which he was doing. So he was flying this massive Boeing.
Yeah.
But he wasn't qualified to do it. And only 20 years later, he got caught out. So
what happened when he got caught?
it got covered up, like charges were going to be laid, but then like you never saw it in the news again. So I don't think anything happened.
That's wild.
But yeah, those are my favorites. Like the
Well, I mean,
fake
you're
stuff.
probably flooded in fake doctors right now.
Yeah. Well, that's a funny story. Yeah.
I saw there was another one that came out last week.
Yeah. And actually earlier this year there were like 100 and something fake doctors arrested. It's actually quite a common thing here in South Africa, unfortunately.
How does it? I mean, we're not getting into news analysis. How does it happen? I don't understand.
They get away with it mainly because like there's sort of these informal practices in like townships and stuff, not in sort of the government hospitals. There have been fake doctors caught in government hospitals as well, but like it's more like the small private practices.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are sort of qualified, but like abroad, but they don't have local qualifications. But also a lot of them genuinely aren't qualified, and they're like, I don't know how it happens. Only in South Africa, as they say. But I mean, it gives us character.
It's taking advantage of people.
Exactly.
And access to healthcare.
Yeah, sadly. And the places are always fun as well. South Africa is such a big country. Lots of interesting places in it, abandoned places. Cool.
Have you gone to any of these spots that you've covered?
I've been to some of the places, but I haven't like covered any of the stories on site. People have asked about that, and that would be cool one day maybe to go to the places as well, to do on-site stuff.
Yeah.
But also like it's weird with content creation. People also they like the familiar sights of me in my office presenting, and so like it's weird with content creation.
Oh yeah, it's comfortable. It's comfortable. Yeah.
People almost find comfort in with familiar sights. So like me being in my office might be more appealing than change of scenery. So no, it's cool. It's, as I say, we're lucky. Like you can find any of this information online, and that's why I always say to people, search, Google it yourself and make your own opinion as well. Your
first year, you're kind of coming up on 1 year of making the video content for yourself.
Yes.
Pushing that for yourself, and you can kind of at this point almost do like a year in review. What were the biggest lessons so far, like year one, and number two for year two as you go into creating more, getting more involved with the content, spreading your wings into other spheres of content? What are you going to change?
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is things aren't always as they seem. So headlines and stuff that may appear in one way aren't always the case. So that's why so I've learned to do very efficient research compared to when I first started. And that's something I'll definitely want to carry into next year.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking forward to as well is just bringing out more of the South African humor and stuff into it. So something I've been trying to do as always, bring into a bit of humor into the videos, just like, only things South Africans would get, jokes and stuff. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing next year, and just establishing myself a little bit more with the audience as just a page to visit to find something entertaining and to enjoy themselves, because that's what I'm trying to do. Just offer people kind of a break from their day-to-day life to see something crazy or funny. Which
you see yourself as an escape, kind of.
Yes, I try to think of myself doing that in a way, and that's why I try and cover all types of content, positive, shocking, sometimes the negative news as well, but just all sorts, to also just show people we have a cool country and lots of stories in this country.
Sometimes you assume because of somebody's like, and we've had this with a couple of guests, is that like you assume because of somebody's online energy are they going to be exactly the same, and sometimes you're very pleasantly surprised because your videos are like edited pretty quickly, your voice is super energetic in them, and then pleasantly, oh yeah, no, he's just such a chill dude.
Thank you. I'm actually quite a shy guy. In reality, I'm a pretty shy, not opinionated person, doesn't like to hear my own voice, which is ironic because
you have to listen back to it, right?
Yeah, and I have to talk a lot in my videos, but in reality, I'm not a big talker. Like, I'm actually mellow and chilled. So
does that
funny?
Is it we're just going. I know it's not inspired really, but like shy guy in front of the camera, because I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like I'm super chilled, super quiet. If I'm at a party, I will be calmly happy in a corner, not saying anything. Something big happens. Omar, are you all right? Are you fine? No, I'm good. I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah.
And then you get in front of camera, and it's not necessarily a character that you put on. It's kind of just a different facet of your personality. When you're out and, say, for instance, somebody recognizes you, do you feel like you have to be that on camera, or are you just this?
I'm very content with who I am.
Yeah.
And I like to give off the impression that that I'm not like full of myself or whatever. So I try to keep a low profile. A running joke I always have with people, well, not always have with people, but sometimes is, because a lot of people say, you look like that guy. Like, not you are that guy, you look like that guy. And I play along, like, I get that a lot. Like, people say I look like him and I'm not him. Like, and then I act like I don't like myself, or like I don't like that guy.
I don't like that guy.
And then people say like, your voice is a little bit different, and okay, now I thought it was you, but it's not you. So I like to play along with that a bit. But no, I mean, I always just enjoy having a conversation with people when that happens. So asking what their name is, where they're from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've met a lot of nice people through it, a lot of cool people through it. So.
I mean, I think it's a bit different to previously, where we had the space of, broadly we can call it content creation, where you kind of had this wave of influencers where the intention was for you to be recognized. The intention was you have fans, but now you have like homies, I guess.
Yeah, and as I say, like I do it for the art form.
Yeah,
the creativity that goes behind it. So, no, I've got the coolest audience. Like they're very supportive of what I do, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you so much for joining us on Thumbstopper this week. My name is Omar Moto. As always, thank you so much to Workshop 17 and Studio 17 for hosting us in their amazing space. New episodes drop every Wednesday, 6 p.m. So remember to like, subscribe, and comment below who you'd like us to catch up with next.